So I'm going to go through some excerpts from this book here, The Ascendancy of the Scientific Dictatorship, an examination of epistemic autocracy from the 19th to 21st century. Read through a bit of this stuff here. Science fiction is a means of conditioning the masses to accept future visions that the elite wish to tangibly enact. This process of gradual and subtle inculcation is dubbed predictive programming. Predictive programming works by means of the propagation of the illusion of an infallible, accurate vision of how the world is going to look in the future. Also dubbed sci-fi inevitabilism by Michael Hoffman, predictive programming is analogous to a virus that infects its hosts with false belief that it is useless to resist central establishment control, or it posits a countercultural alternative to such control, which is actually a counterfeit, covertly emanating from the establishment itself. One example of that, just to interject something here, would be like that hippie movement that they set up for the purpose of discrediting real anti-war protesters in the 60s and making them look foolish and making them look like drug addicts. So going back to it here, that the blackening pollution of Earth is as unavoidable as entropy. That evolution of the species is inevitable. That the re-inhabitation of the Earth by the quote-unquote old gods, Genesis 6:4, is our stellar scientific destiny. Memes, contagious ideas, are instilled through the circulation of mass appeal documents under the guise of science fiction literature. Once subsumed on a psychological level, these memes become self-fulfilling prophecies embraced by the masses and outwardly approximated through the efforts of the elite. As this examination of the scientific dictatorship proceeds, the previous list of illusory notions promulgated by sci-fi predictive programmers will continue to resurface. Even a casual perusal of the great body of science fiction would reveal this truism. The genre constitutes little more than a collection of allegorized versions of the elite's occult Darwinian doctrine. The sci-fi concepts of utopia and dystopia are really Hegelian terms for the same thing, a socialist totalitarian system. The sci-fi genre invariably extends itself into the realm of occult, which thematically underpins the doctrines of the elite. Karl Raschke expounds upon the close ties between the two. The snug relationship between occult fantasy and the actual practice of the occult is well established in history. Writers such as H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Rice Burroughs, progenitor of the Tarzan and Jane tales, were practicing occultists. L. Ron Hubbard, architect of the controversial religion known as Scientology, openly and consciously decided to convert his science fiction work into a working belief system upon which a church was set up. Science fiction, science fantasy, pure fantasy, and the world of esoteric thought and activity have all been intimately connected historically. Just as Hubbard's sci-fi novels paved the way for his Church of Scientology, the science fiction genre as a whole is paving the way for a new theocracy. Raschke elaborates further on the religious dimensions of science fiction. Increasingly, science fiction with its vistas of technological future intertwines with the neo-pagan and the medieval. The synthesis was first achieved with polished artistry in Lucas' Star Wars trilogy. And of course, George Lucas' Star Wars trilogy, a lot of occult symbolism and themology within that series for sure. As the vision of the elite is subliminally encoded within the public mind through sci-fi predictive programming, the Luciferian religion of the ruling class is also unconsciously subsumed. One major sci-fi proselyte of Luciferianism was Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek. In an interview, Roddenberry candidly espoused a core precept of the Luciferian religion. As nearly as I can concentrate on the question today, I believe I am God. Certainly you are. I think we intelligent beings on this planet are all a piece of God and becoming God. Quote from Gene Roddenberry there. Of course, this reiterates the older lie whispered by the serpent in Eden. Ye shall be as gods, Genesis 3:5. It is at the core of Luciferianism and its doctrine of becoming. This is the occult concept of becoming, which the elite disseminated on the popular level as Darwinism. Evolution is the means by which this purported transformation of man into God is to occur. The science fiction genre has been central to the indoctrination of the masses into evolutionary thought. For instance, the science fiction of H.G. Wells would play an important role in promulgating the concept of evolution. J.P. Vernier explains, science fiction is admittedly almost impossible to define. Readers all think they know what it is, and yet no definition will cover all its various aspects. However, I would suggest that evolution, as presented by Wells, that is a kind of mutation resulting in the confrontation of man with different species, is one of the main themes of modern science fiction. In his concept of predictive programming, if this concept of predictive programming seems fantastic, imagine the case of H.G. Wells a little closer. Wells was mentored by T.H. Huxley, the grandfather of Aldous. In return, Wells would tutor Aldous and his brother Julian. All of these men were Darwinians and members of the Freemasonic Lodge, the significance of which will be revealed shortly. J.P. Vernier reveals Wells' religious adherence to the concept of evolution and its inspiration on him as an author of science fiction. The impact of the theory of evolution on Wells' mind is well known. It was the first felt when he attended the lectures of T.H. Huxley at South Kensington in 1884 and 1885, and 10 years later, evolution was to provide him with the fundamental theme for his scientific romances and of many of his short stories. Wells would also author several mass appeal tracts disguised as science fiction novels. Most notable of these novels was The Shape of Things to Come. Deceased researcher Jim Keith offered the following assessment of Wells' The Shape of Things to Come. Again, interestingly, deceptively, the book is presented as a work of science fiction, but within its pages is Wells' best guess of how the New World Order would come to pass from a 1930s perspective. While primarily a work of propaganda that pushes the one world view of Wells and other internationalists during the first half of this century, the book is particularly revealing in that it also expresses many of the strategies that are to be employed. And moving along here to another passage, materialism, a veil for the cryptocracy. While this new theocracy is veiled in secularism, it must be understood that the new state-sanctioned institution of knowing was and is a form of mysticism akin to its religious progenitor. Accompanying the philosophical seg of atheism is materialism, the contention that matter holds metaphysical primacy. Daniel Pausner explains how materialism qualifies as a form of mysticism. The materialist is the mystic who believes in existence without consciousness and preaches subordination to a vague and unaccountable society variously called public interest, quote-unquote the people, world opinion, the common good. Materialism is also closely aligned with the Kabbalistic mysticism, metaphysical naturalism, which will be examined shortly. At any rate, the mysticism of materialism was designed to divert attention away from the spiritual current of Luciferianism underpinning the technocratic conspiracy. With the eyes of the masses turned exclusively toward the world of matter, the elite are free to construct the global scientific dictatorship. Meanwhile, fools blindly cite individuals or groups as the source of all their woes, unable to identify the spiritual principles of Luciferianism that are being tangibly enacted right before their eyes. The masses hopelessly believe that the nullification of certain parties will solve their problems. Christian philosopher John Paul Jones elaborates. According to this materialist methodology, all we need to do is find material cause of evil and destroy it. After all, since materialists assume all causes are material, they are logically obliged and conceptually predisposed to assume that evil is itself caused by material, physically destructible things or causes. Continuing on, metaphysical naturalism, the golem reborn. Underpinning the concept of metaphysical naturalism is the notion that life originated with lifeless matter. This notion, dubbed spontaneous generation, excludes the involvement of a supernatural creator. Thus, nature becomes a god creating itself. Louis Pasteur, whose work established the law of biogenesis, provided the most succinct summation of this anthropomorphic mysticism. To bring about spontaneous generation would be to create a germ. It would be creating life. It would be to solve the problem of its origin. It would mean to go from matter to life through conditions of environment and of matter, lifeless materialism. God, as author of life, would then no longer be needed. Matter would replace him. God would need to be invoked only as author of the motions of the universe. Simply stated, metaphysical naturalism is merely another form of idolatry. Of course, like all the false gods of antiquity, the veracity of this new deity was soon demolished. Spontaneous generation was proven impossible by the law of biogenesis. However, this fact did not stop certain men of science, quote unquote, from chronically deifying nature. For instance, Charles Darwin unconsciously revealed his idolatrous impulses through statements like, "Natural selection picks out with unerring skill the best varieties." Evident in such statements is an unconscious belief that nature is sentient. After all, only a sentient being holds discriminative tastes and therefore picks out the recipients of its favor. Moreover, such statements reveal an unconscious belief in nature as a sovereign deity acting as the ultimate arbiter of life and death. This meme has metastasized, presenting itself today as the Gaian hypothesis. This hypothesis holds that the biosphere is a self-creating, self-sustaining, and self-generating entity. Central to this thesis is the contention that both the living and the non-living are inseparable. Although the concept of spontaneous generation was proven scientifically bankrupt years ago, many continue to resuscitate its corpse to suit their own idolatrous presuppositions. This stubborn and irrational anthropomorphic proclivity reinforces Paul's assessment of such idolaters. Professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. Why does this theme of lifeless matter spontaneously generating life continue to emerge? The answer is because it has been with man for a very long time. It is derivative of the golem, an occult concept presented in the Hebraic Kabbalah. 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike revealed that all the Masonic associations owe to it the Kabbalah, their secrets, and their symbols. According to this occult text, the golem was an artificially created man whose life was animated from dead matter. The late Isaac Bashevis Singer, who studied the Kabbalah extensively, explained, "The golem is based on faith that dead matter is not really dead, but can be brought to life. What are the computers and robots of our time if not golems? The Talmud tells us of an interpreter by the name of Rava who formed a man by this mysterious power. We are living in an epoch of golem making right now. The gap between science and magic is becoming narrower." Continuing on, the Sirius connection. In Morals and Dogma, 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike bestows a special honor upon Sirius, a heavenly body that still glitters in our lodges as the blazing star. Indeed, Sirius represents a foundational axiom of the Masonic craft. Pike explains that the star is an emblem of the divine truth, given by God to the first man and preserved amid all the vicissitudes of ages in the traditions and teachings of Masonry. As Pike continues, he reveals that Sirius has also held numerous other appellations. The blazing star in our lodges, we have already said, represents Sirius, Anubis, or Mercury, guardian and guide of souls. Whatever its name, the star represents an entity of great esoteric significance to Freemasonry. In the old lectures, they said the blazing star or glory in the center refers us to the grand luminary, the sun, which enlightens the earth and by its genial influence dispenses blessings to mankind. A little later, Pike reiterates, the blazing star has been regarded as an emblem of omniscience, or the all-seeing eye, which to the ancients was the sun. Recall that before the external characteristics of the oligarch's control apparatus were cosmetically altered to present a scientific dictatorship, the elite ruled through institutionalized sun worship. Within his own statements, Pike provides a brief glimpse of the god of Freemasonry. Although the topographical features of its theocracy have changed, the deity has remained the same and his identity is encapsulated within the star called Sirius. According to Pike, Sirius was responsible for imparting numerous innovations to mankind. He was Sirius, or the dog star, the friend and counselor of Osiris, and inventor of language, grammar, astronomy, surveying, arithmetic, music, and medical science, the first maker of laws, and who taught the worship of the gods and the building of the temples. In addition to imparting primitive technology unto mankind, Sirius is alleged to have also acted as a facilitator of the evolutionary process. According to occultist Alice Bailey, in The Secret of the Sun, Sirius are the hidden facts of our cosmic evolution, and incidentally, therefore, of our solar system. Herein is the true motive for the Lodge's promulgation of Darwinism, the reintroduction of the Masonic deity to the public mind, and the reinstatement of the old Babylonian theocracy under the guise of science. This Freemasonic mythology of extraterrestrial intervention in human evolution may be poised for a return. Given the impossibility of spontaneous generation, Darwinism has faced a major obstacle in its unquestioned primacy. Recognizing this obstacle, scientific materialist Francis Crick presented a theory bearing an uncanny resemblance to the Sirius myth. According to Crick, technology advanced extraterrestrials seeded the Earth with life billions of years ago. Whether Crick was privy to the occult doctrines of the elite or was simply following the natural course of Darwinism's mimetic metastasis, one thing is certain. He and other proponents of similar extraterrestrial intervention theories are paving the way for the reintroduction of Freemasonic mysticism into mainstream science. In Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike also wrote, no human being can with certainty say what is truth or that he is surely in possession of it. So everyone should feel that it is quite possible that another equally honest and sincere with himself, and yet holding the contrary opinion, may himself be in possession of the truth, which is in itself just a way of twisting things around, quite obviously, in the same way that, this is me here, not from the book, in the same way that they had Nietzsche do this thing to sort of twist around people's perception of morality by putting out books like, writing books like Beyond Good and Evil, which were clearly planned to do just that, to reestablish people's perception of good and evil and morality. And getting back to it here, evident in this statement is the overall relativistic Weltanschauung of Freemasonry. The Weltanschauung is the dominant paradigm among all correlative elitist groups as well. As adherents to relativism, the ruling class rejects absolute truths and moral certainties. Over the years, this Weltanschauung has been vigorously promulgated by the elite and thus has become the dominant paradigm of society. The mantra of "do what thou wilt" is continually reiterated by academia, the media, and pop culture. With each successive generation, humanity continues its inexorable drift towards amorality. Of course, this drift serves the interests of the ruling class. The further away humanity drifts from morality, the closer it drifts towards enslavement. In addition to promoting amorality, relativism encourages the embracing of irrationality. The problem with relativism is a systemic one, a dilemma intrinsic to the view itself. Relativism is predicated upon the contention that there are no absolutes. Yet if there are no absolutes, then one cannot absolutely declare that there are no absolutes. In fact, declarative statements cannot exist because they are statements of fact. Facts are absolutes and, according to relativism, do not exist. Immediately, the position implodes, crushed by its own intrinsic irrationality. Relativism is a self-refuting paradigm. And again, these were just some brief excerpts from this book, The Ascendancy of the Scientific Dictatorship, an examine of epistemic autocracy from the 19th to the 21st century by Philip Darrell Collins and Paul David Collins. I would highly recommend reading this book. I've downloaded a copy of it to have it on the Kindle, and it's quite good. Very well written and some very good information in here. So yeah, definitely check it out if you do get the chance.